I'd like to begin by sharing a parable. It's probably something that you've all heard over the years, but I heard it again recently, and I thought it was particularly sort of poignant for this morning's breakfast. It goes like this. One day there was a woman living in a very small village, and all of a sudden she heard a baby crying. And she couldn't figure out where this cry was coming from. And she looked around, and all of a sudden she realized the cry was coming from the river. And she thought, how can a baby's cry be coming from the river? So she rowed out and she found a baby on a raft, an abandoned baby. She brought the baby back to the village. She fed the baby, she cared for the baby, comforted the baby. The next day, she heard a baby crying again. It seemed again, the cry seemed to be coming from the river. She went back to the river and found yet another baby. She brought the baby home, did the same thing, fed the baby, comforted the baby, cared for the baby. Next day, no cries, thank heavens. But in the weeks that came, she heard more and more babies crying. She quickly realized that she herself could not possibly care for these babies. She enlisted the help of her neighbors, her friends, people in the community who could help her care for these babies. Well, pretty soon, word got out that this was a great village and that something important was happening, that the village was all coming together, the people were coming together to help these babies in distress, to care for them, to tend for them, to love them. And she was feeling very good about this effort until one day a guest came to her village. And she started to talk to the guest about what a wonderful thing was happening in her village, how everyone was working so well together to rescue these babies. And instead of applauding her efforts, the guest said, haven't you gone upriver to find out where the babies are coming from? What is the cause of this? Why aren't you finding a way of stopping the problem at the source rather than responding to the problem down the river? And this is in no way to minimize what all of us are doing in terms of trying to deal with that baby we find in the river, the family in distress, the people who really need our help when abuse and neglect has already been identified. But in these extremely difficult times, as much as we all pull together, as much as we offer the resources we have, as much as we try to be creative and think outside the box, we're never going to be able to solve this problem if we don't go and look at the front end, the source. Why are people feeling a need to abandon their babies? Why are people unable to stop themselves from abusing and neglecting children? And I think this is what the breakfast today is really all about. How can we not just pull together to deal with the problems we see, but how can we, in a larger sense, think about trying to get to the root problems of what is causing this injury and neglect of children? Because it's only by preventing the conditions that result in abuse and neglect that we're really going to be able to help the children and families in the land and the Commonwealth, in the country, and in the world. I want to take just a few minutes. I know we're running a little late, and I really don't want to cut into Gary Calhoun's time. I want to just briefly tell you a little bit about my office and what it is that we're trying to do and how we might be helpful to you. A lot of people say to me, oh my God, you left the bench to take this job. Why? Well, the reason why is, to some extent, I was tired of dealing with things on a case-by-case basis. I was only able to deal with the child and family who came in front of me. I did the best I could, but I increasingly was feeling like there must be a different way to try to help children. There must be a way to try to think about what I've learned over the years as a mom, first and foremost, as a lawyer, as somebody who worked as part of an interdisciplinary team at Children's Hospital, who saw distressed kids and families coming in front of me in court for 13 years. I heard about this job, the Office of the Child Advocate. Didn't have a clue, and no, I don't know the governor. I didn't know the governor. I actually read a blurb in the Globe, and I said, what is this office? And I decided to try to learn more about it. I applied for the job, and I got it. And it's interesting, you know how you sometimes feel that you took a job under one job description and then the job description changed? Well, that's definitely what happened to me. I took the job in late April of last year on a one-page executive order job description and thought, aha, I will be able to fill in all the blanks and figure out what it is the Office of the Child Advocate is going to do. But lo and behold, the legislature felt that the office needed a lot more direction. So as part of the child welfare law that was enacted in July of last year, the Office of the Child Advocate was given very specific responsibilities, very specific mandates. Huge, huge. In addition, and I'm going to go over several of the areas that we're involved with, and hopefully you'll get a sense of how large the mandate is. Our mission is primarily, the way it came about, why did we get an Office of the Child Advocate? I think it's fair to say it was largely a result of a number of very high-profile child abuse and neglect cases and a feeling that perhaps some independent agency giving some oversight could be helpful. But it was also, I think, a growing sense that there might be a new way to configure the agencies, a new way to align people and projects and agencies so that kids and families didn't fall through the cracks, so that we didn't duplicate services, so that we were able to replicate what worked and do that in a better way. So our main goal really, as the legislature sees it, and as the governor saw it and does see it, is to try to work with the executive serving agencies, the kingpin of which is DCF. But as we know, many families are not just involved with DCF. They're involved with transitional assistance. They might be involved with the juvenile justice system. They might be involved with the Department of Mental Health. They might be involved with DMR, and just so you know, as of June 30th, it will be renamed the Department of Developmental Services, rather than the Department of Mental Retardation. I think people are very excited about that. Education, a huge, huge part of what this office has to do is try to figure out how to help the education agencies work better with the health and human service agencies. I cannot tell you how many meetings we're at, and we look around and say, where are the ed folks? We have DYS folks here, we have DMH, we have DCF, but where are the educational folks? And it's not their fault. I just think the way things are configured, there's not enough interface between the educational agencies and the health and human service agencies. So in a nutshell, what we do is we do conduct investigations. We receive critical incident reports from the agencies. We review what the agency has done to see if we feel that they have worked through the problem themselves, itself. And if we don't, we ask them to take a second look. We might point them in a direction of concern that we have. In certain cases, and you may have heard, I'm sure you have, of the tragic death of 2 sisters in South Boston fire last April. In fact, today is the first anniversary of those people's deaths. Very, very sad. It was an incident that we did do a thorough review of, an independent investigation looking at all of the DCF files. We spoke with the district attorneys around the criminal prosecution. We prepared a very lengthy, comprehensive report for Commissioner McLean, for the governor, for the legislature. And our office is working with Commissioner McLean to try to really follow through on the recommendations that came out of the report. It wasn't a report, and my office is not about, aha, got you. My office is about trying to really help the agencies work together better. We also receive complaints, concerns, and sometimes compliments about what things are working or are not working within the system. So if you have a client or family that you particularly feel is getting stuck somehow, that they're getting either stuck between agencies, they're not getting, their case is bogged down, you just want to brainstorm, I will give you a link to our website. I'll pass out some cards if you want some. We will try to help you to the extent that we can. We're a very small office, but we triage, we provide sometimes just some background information, and sometimes we can grease the wheels a little bit by picking up the phone and calling the commissioner of one of the various departments to say, look, this kid, this family needs something more than they're getting. But the main thing we do is interagency coordination. We are trying desperately to find new ways to link. We can be in one part of the state and hear about a project. We can be in another part of the state and hear about a similar project, and nobody knows what's going on. We try to link those people to coordinate their efforts. We're trying to redefine how the agencies interface. The legislature put me on every interagency task force you can imagine.